Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, Fearless Freedom family. Oh my, we have a treat today. Today we have the awesome Jackie Zukerman, and she is going to tell you all about how NEXTonSCENE Media was born in the closet and is now amazingly successful. So Jackie, you have to tell us the story, because I mean, it has to be quite the listen.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. It's such an honor to be here. Yes, I did start in my bedroom closet. That's where my podcast began 5 years ago. I still do it now there as well.
Nice.
But it's a great platform in terms of like an audio setup. So I've just kept it, and obviously it blossomed from there. So originally my background started, I'm from New York. I moved to Boston about 5 years ago now in May. And I have a background in events and public relations, and casting. Those are my three different areas that I worked in prior to moving. And when I moved to Boston, I had no contacts, knew nobody except my now husband.
Wow.
So being so extroverted, I moved here and I was the most introverted person ever. And it was crazy because, you think when you move, like, oh my God, I'm going to expand my horizons. I'm going to do all these cool things. But I think the part that I struggled with the most was I didn't know anybody. And I also didn't have a job, right? And I knew from that point, from those two starter points, going in, not knowing anybody and not having a job. Because usually when you move and you have a job, you can make friends pretty easily, right?
Right.
So that's really where, your whole podcast is about fearless. Like, that was my really vulnerable state when I first moved here. I knew nobody. I had to learn the ropes of how to even go out and network and talk to people I didn't know. Like, that was very intimidating. So that's really how I started to force myself to go out and meet people. And it really took a long time. It took about a year for me to really get comfortable in who I was as a person, because I really was this new person that came here, from out of state. And one thing I learned when you move is that if you don't, like I said earlier, if you don't have a job, it's totally intimidating, because you have to like reintroduce yourself. And it's like, how do you portray yourself when you're unemployed? It's like,
right.
I have a background in event planning. I have a background in PR, but it's like, I also knew at that point I had been in corporate for a very long time, and I did not want to work in corporate anymore. So I was literally like starting from the bottom of, in all different aspects of my life. It was great because it was a brand new like opening,
right?
In terms of, like, things I can do. But it really was a very, fearful time in my life. So I just wanted to talk about essentially like how I got started. And, when I first moved from New York, I got a job on Top Chef.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So yeah. So one of my friends from LA, because I have a PR background and I'm connected there, she was one of the producers on the show, and they were like, Jackie, we know you love fashion. We need a stylist for the show. And I was like, this is awesome. So I didn't really get into this because I said I moved here and I didn't have a job. But the day that I was driving from New York, they hired me for this job. They hired me for the styling job. But the thing is with this job is it was an LA gig, right? It was an LA and New York gig. So as soon as the show was over, they all go back their separate ways, right? So I had this job for about 6 weeks. And most of the people that were on the set were from out of state. So it was awesome. And I did all the styling. Like, I worked side by side with Padma Lakshmi. I'm sure if you have heard of the show like that, I was her stylist. I was
nice
for her. It was really cool. So that was a really good experience. And then when the show was over, like I said, everybody went their separate ways and I was back in my little hole of like being an introvert. So it's like, how did I push myself to come out of this comfort zone? And I started really building a presence on social media. And joining different groups, just like we had talked yesterday about on my podcast with you. It's like the connections you can make on social media can be so valuable to your life.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So I really started to build a presence online, making connections, and I started to get hired to manage people's social media accounts and attend events. And I think that started to help me go out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
A little more. So I started to go to the different networking groups that I was in for, like the groups on Facebook. They have one that's called like Boston Business Women. That was a great beginning platform for me personally as a local Bostonian. So my recommendation for anybody that's listening is that if they're looking for an outlet, for business-oriented things, if you are an entrepreneur, look up like the city you're in, business women, because I feel like there's a lot of different people you can find and connect with that can open doors for you. I mean, that's literally what happened for me. It's literally how I built my business.
Wow. Okay.
So I love sharing that story because I feel like social media can really be a catapult to really explode who you are as a person. So that's really how I started to take off my business. Social media really, was a huge part of it. And the podcast came along because I did some research and I interned at the time for like a local podcast studio, and they didn't pay. And I was like, well, I'm out of a job from Top Chef. And I'm unemployed, I was in between being unemployed and I just had moved from New York, and I was like, I can't do this for free. Like, how am I supposed to like live?
Right.
So, one thing kind of led to the other, and I took so basically at this podcast studio, I only was a host. So like the way that you're hosting right now, you do all the editing, everything, right, Charmaine?
Right, I do.
So at that type of setting, I was just hosting. So I knew nothing about the back end stuff. So I was like, there has to be a way to monetize this. So I went to social media, I watched a ton of YouTube videos, and I built my own studio.
Nice.
And that's really like 5 years ago when podcasts really started just coming out. I launched my podcast around then. So between my podcast and my social media presence, I grew my listenership and my presence online fairly quickly. And the people I was interviewing started to get, generating leads for their business, started to get more exposure. So they ended up hiring me for other type of work. So like,
nice.
I started like managing their social media accounts, doing PR for them. And like, that's really how my business started to take off. So
wow, that's such a great story. It's amazing that you you utilized what you're good at, which is, talking to people.
Right, exactly.
And then you just found a media through which you can make that voice be amplified manyfold. So, wow, that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
And then it's also pretty neat that you got in on podcasting kind of at a good time, now I look at it and I'm like, wow, there are all of these people who are doing podcasting now, and it is continuing to grow at exponential rates, just the industry itself. And to have, to be a veteran in the industry is cool, because I'm sure you've seen just the evolution of it and how it has grown and changed. And I'm sure you have lots of sage advice for people like me who are just starting out. I'm super, super excited to hear your story because, you took something that you're really good at, which is speaking to people. You found a media through which you can amplify that several fold to kind of make the impact of your voice and, just amplify it, which is amazing. And so I know that you've seen quite a lot of changes in the podcasting industry, given the growth that it has had even in the last couple of years. So over 5 years, you've probably seen a ton and have probably a lot of advice for people like me who are just starting out. So that's pretty cool.
No, I think it's awesome. And I was even telling you before we started, your show, like you're doing a great job for just starting like pretty new. Like you're doing an amazing job. Your whole setup, everything you prep your guests with. I was so impressed. I was really impressed. So good job.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So yeah, I think podcasting is just an incredible platform. It literally is like the new radio, because it's like the thing is with radio is that it's live. So if you're not listening at that moment, you're not going to hear the radio air at all. And that's why podcasting has become so popular, because it's like, oh crap, I missed that segment. Well, I can listen to it at any time that I want now that I've right? So that's what makes it so important. And audio is so valuable for all the commuters that walk to work, commuters that take trains, like so many different types of people that are constantly commuting or have some downtime, like get inspired by listening to podcasts.
Right. Yeah. Or if I definitely know that I listen more than I watch anything. So it's been a godsend. They have certain ones that are in my queue that I'm always listening to. I catch up on the news. Like I have NPR in my queue, and I listen to the news and just kind of know in 5 minutes, like what are the highlights of the day, which makes a huge difference. So I'm not going to turn the TV on and watch the news. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, people have different preferences, but I feel like audio is just, it's such always forever a valuable thing. And the fact that they created a way for people to listen, even if it's not live, is so valuable. So it's awesome.
That is, you're making some good points there. The other thing that I wanted to kind of ask you to elaborate on, as far as facing the fear of moving to the new environment when you moved to Massachusetts, you mentioned one of the ways in which you were able to connect with your tribe locally was joining a women's business organization. Were there any organizations or meetups or things that you did to do the social piece? So we talked about kind of how you build your tribe from the business standpoint. How about from the social side?
That's a really good question. So I ended up finding, this is actually, I don't know how I want to describe the word of this, but I guess in my field, I tend to have a personality where like people think that we're friends first, which is good. That's a really good thing, because what ends up happening, what I've learned from experience, especially my clients that I started out with, they've become like really good friends of mine. So I think that the thing that I had always struggled with is like knowing the difference between we're friends and we're business associates.
Gotcha.
So that's a really good question, because I feel like in my field, I work so hands-on. Like if I'm going to promote or represent somebody, I need to be a buyer. Because if I'm going to buy your product or service, of course I'm going to be able to sell it.
Absolutely.
It's just so much easier for me, right? So I always went in with the attitude that like, if I'm going to buy from you, I want to be friends with you because I want to keep supporting you and I want to help promote what you're doing. So I actually found that avenue initially, when I was exploring the business quote unquote world, it was initially for friendships first. And then what happened from there is they became business associates and things like that.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That worked out.
Yeah, it totally did. Because at that time, even though I had a podcast and I had a little bit of a marketing business in Boston, it wasn't as established as it is now. Okay. So I was really trying to put feelers out because I already had my regular clients. So I think I was trying to feel out the newer market because I was really putting myself in a vulnerable state, networking with these people. I had no idea what I was walking into. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why I was going in with like, okay, if I get a friend out of this, awesome. If I don't, it's totally fine. Like it was a good business networking experience. So
it sounds like almost making it not stressful and not with the end goal of selling something in mind made all the difference in the relationship building part of it.
Totally. Completely.
Wow.
Yeah. And what I didn't even touch into, Charmaine, yet is so when I moved to Boston, right, I knew nobody. And then also what I found in the PR world, especially from New York being so involved there, is when you move to a city and you don't have media contacts, it's very hard to get in. like in
Ooh.
that realm of people. So what I went to the drawing board and I was like, I can help my clients on my podcast get some like, you know, audio exposure, but how can I get them some visual exposure and like more connections outside of social media?
Gotcha.
So I went, I have a magazine, so it's about 2.5 years old now. I went back to the drawing board. I went to YouTube and I learned how to build a magazine.
Okay.
So I have now a podcast and a magazine, and my magazine originally was for my podcast clients. And then it became, now I'm totally international, which is awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I just never, it's totally exceeded my expectations. If you asked me I was ever going to have a magazine, never in a million years did I ever think this is something I was going to do.
Right.
But I did it. And I would say now, like every year I launch an issue. So we're in print and digital.
Okay.
And every time I launch an issue, I have an event around it. So actually in 2.5 weeks, I have an annual fashion show that I do once a year.
Okay.
So I'm launching my spring issue and I'm showcasing my clients that are fashion designers, jewelry designers, musicians, comedians, all of the above, all in one setting. So it's really cool. So I love the whole shop small concept because I feel like I can't.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. It's more personal. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've really built my own media platform essentially. And so now there's like multiple ways to get seen and heard of like who's next to know about. And that's really what I'm doing. So
that's so awesome. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. So I really do a lot. People ask me like what you do. I'm like, I'm a promoter. Essentially, that's what I am in a nutshell. I'm a PR promoter. You come to me for like spreading out whatever you're looking to promote and I could share it to the masses. That's like what I do.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
No, that's so cool. You know, I noticed something about you. So I lived in New York for a number of years as well. And I was in the Bronx for the majority of the time. But I used to listen to Hot 97. You know anything about that?
Oh my God, yes. Yes. So funny you bring that up. So yeah, I used to work at Hot 97 in New York for a little while. That was very cool. I was one of the promotional assistants. So I would help like go on site for any of the gigs that they had. I would help, give out flyers. And I was so young, but it was like freaking awesome. I was like in my, just out of college, but it was amazing. It was so cool to hang out with like, Funk Master Flex and like all
the legends, all the people that, paved the way.
Exactly.
Wow. No, nice. Okay, so clearly you're close to my age. Must be because you're mentioning Funk Master Flex.
Oh my God, I love Funk Master Flex. He's actually, I don't know if you're familiar, Charmaine, with Westchester at all.
Yeah, I used to live on the border, like
awesome.
Hershey and the Bronx. So
I love it. So I graduated from Iona.
Okay, yeah.
So I grew up in Westchester. My brother owns a place off of the Salmo River Parkway. It's called Light.
Okay.
He does. That's where I had like my event planning and PR experience for a long time. But he did a lot of events with him. So when I was working for my brother, because he lives in Ardsley, Funk Master Flex.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It's cool. It's cool. It's just like cool how everything
small world. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I just think I think the one thing that I've learned from most of my experience to this point is like, you just have to continue to take chances in life because you never know like until you try. Yes,
indeed. So. And you don't know when you're going to cross paths with someone that, can make a huge difference in the future of you and them, because I never discount human encounters because I feel like there's always something to be had from each one of them.
Agreed.
And you may not know at the time, the intensity of it, but later on it's like, oh yeah, we did meet, 10 years ago and I thought of you because you told me this and I have someone I want to connect you with. And then that person just takes you to the next level. So yeah, you just never know. You're right. It's just like our interactions are so meaningful.
Yeah, I loved how you said that though, because it's like everybody, even if like that initial person might not be your direct, point of contact in the future, they know somebody that you need to know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I've come to realize this over the years, like even within medicine. And so medicine is a big umbrella, but then, you know, it's broken down into all these little factions. And emergency medicine, which is where my world lies, you know, that is a very small network. And so, you know, you speak to one person and, you know, like you said, they may not be the one that's going to get you where you need to go, but you mention something and then they're like, oh yeah, I know such and such. And then it turns out that that person is the person that you need to speak to in order to get your agenda pushed forward. And you just never know. So that's why it's always good to be, you know, be cordial and, you know, try to get a good experience out of every encounter, because you just never know how it's going to pay off in the end.
It's so true.
That's why I really appreciated what you said earlier in our conversation, where you mentioned that when you were doing your networking, your end goal was not to sell your product, but it was really just to basically make a contact with another human and build a relationship. Because I think that is just that is something that seems kind of basic, but a lot of people, particularly if they're doing something where there's a product that needs to be traded between individuals, like there doesn't seem to be a focus on the relationship. There seems to be a focus on how am I going to get you to the point where you're going to buy my product? And people sense that, you know, so you know, if you're being genuine in your contacts and you're being genuine in your interactions, people sense that as well, and they're more apt to want to elevate you and want to support you. So, yeah, no, I think that's like a gem of a piece of advice that you dropped on us earlier. So I thank you for that, because it's gold for sure.
I'm so glad. Thank you. Yeah, I think another reason why I even started my brand too is because I felt such rejection when I kept like pitching to the different media outlets in Boston. Like nobody was responding to me, and I was like, but it's not me. It's like, why can't they just say, you know, Jackie, it's not fit right now? Like I would have just accepted any response, but to get no response was such like a, you know, like knife in the back. It was kind of like, it made me feel like shit. So I was like, sorry, I hope that it's okay to say that.
It's fine.
So my end goal for creating my brand is I wanted people to be able to pitch me, and I, you know, as a media brand, and I would be able to respond to them whether I thought it was fit or not, you know, like I didn't want people to feel that rejection of how I felt.
Wow.
I think that that's another reason why I started my brand. But the thing is too, you know, you being a podcaster yourself, you really have to do research on like who you're pitching, because if you're reaching out to a media outlet because you want to get some exposure for yourself, if you haven't done any reading at all on them and you're just copying and pasting the same message to every media outlet, it's so impersonal. Just like talked about, it's like people don't open them, people don't pay attention to them, and I hate to say that, but like I totally understand. Like if you're copying and pasting the same thing to me as you are to every other person, it's not personalized.
Right.
Like, I want to respond to you. Like that's the thing that people need to know, that like people want that personal connection.
Amen, sister. Preach it, because that is like, I don't know. I can't tell you how many times I've been annoyed by being the recipient of that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I have to tell you, like, just because I've even been connected with so many different multi-level marketing companies, all that type of stuff. And it's like, I want to support them. But if you're going to copy and paste the same message to me that you're copying and pasting to every other person on your friend list, then I'm not going to be interested in chatting with you. You know, it's not going to work.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah. I just think that one of my specialties has really become like how to approach people and make them feel, like you said, like want to have a conversation.
Right.
Because so many people, you know, it is intimidating to approach a new person and ask what to talk about, but you just never know until you give the person a chance, right?
That's so true. So true. Yeah. Definitely. Cool. Oh my goodness. Such a great conversation. So do you feel like, so we talked about fears, some big fears that you faced, and you shared some very practical ways of getting around those, getting over them, getting through them. So are there any fears that you are currently tackling?
Yeah, I actually, you know, we all have ongoing fears. I have a fear of helping push myself still, maybe because it's from like my past, but like getting myself to the next level. So I have all of these different contacts to help get my magazines in print in more, you know, airports and things like that. And I'm still having that hard time to push myself to just write the email, like just write the email and like approach it. Cause I just have this like fear of success a little bit.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So, yeah. So I think that's, I mean, it's a natural thing. I think everybody has it on some level, but I think that's definitely something that I'm currently dealing with. So.
And how do you feel like you're going to face
Get
that?
out of it?
Yeah. How are you facing that?
That's a really good, I think one day I'm just going to do it. I think, you know, when you just have like, you need to sit on it for a little while and think about something. And it's like, one day something's going to stick me in the butt and be like, Jackie, it's time, you know? So I tend to find there are different things that come up in my life that I have done, even if it's like a year later, but I end up doing it, you know? So I think that I just come to accept that when it feels like the right time, which is like advice that I just want to share, like don't pressure yourself. Like when it's the right time, you will do something about it.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good one because we tend to want to do everything all at once, and that does put undue pressure on yourself. And in some situations, it can be a setup for failing, and not a good kind of failure, because it's usually that failure is not the one that you get up, you dust yourself off, and you learn from. It's usually the one that's more disheartening because you're like, it's a bigger deal. So yeah, no. Allowing yourself to sit on it for a little bit before taking the plunge. No, that's good.
Right. Because you also want to make sure, like, you don't want to half-ass it, and you don't want to, you want to make sure you do all your research and approach people the right way. And that's why, like, I don't want to do a copy and paste scenario. I want to actually take the time to do my research and like make sure that I'm approaching the people I want to approach in the right way. So
no, that's good. That's good advice. Yeah. Awesome, Jackie. So are you ready for our fill in the blanks?
I am ready.
Are you ready? All right. I know you are. All right. So here we go. All right. So we're at that time in the podcast where we fill in the blanks. Unfortunately, we have to bring our awesome conversation to an end, but here we go. To me, fearless freedom means
living your dream life.
Okay. All right. And if I am fearless, I will.
If I am fearless, I will put aside things that I feel like I can't do that I can do. I can do the things I think I can't do. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. It's like confidence, having confidence in your abilities.
Exactly. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Perfect.
Awesome. And then last but not least, my battle cry is,
if you can dream it, you can do it.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Jackie, for taking time out of your busy day and hanging out with us and just sharing your knowledge, your experiences. We really appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness to share. That is something that is greatly appreciated because it's not an easy thing to do, to talk about, things that you are fearful of and how you overcame them. So thank you so much for doing that with us today.
Yeah, Charmaine, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be on, and thank you for letting me share my story.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today on this journey. Fear is all around us. It strives to stop us from achieving our greatness. We have the tools to be overcomers. By sharing our stories, supporting each other, and doing self-reflection, we can do this. If you found value in this conversation today, please be sure to subscribe to and share this podcast with your friends. By going to your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review and a 5-star rating, you will help to get the word out about it. And that is much appreciated. Thanks again for spending time with us. I appreciate your time and your attention. It is my hope that you will punch fear in the face today and that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.